And welcome everyone to the JB Media Digital Drop-In. We're so glad you're here. I'm going to pass it off to Justin, and he's going to get us started today.
Thanks, Sarah. So most of this presentation is going to be led by two of my colleagues at JB Media Group, Peter Frisa and David Gwaltney. But real briefly, I wanted to share my background with Google Grants. Probably about 8 or 9 years ago, we had a client that approached us who had an existing Google Grant. They were a national community of mental health professionals who offered their services at a discount, and they mostly, marketed those locally in the communities where people needed those services. And we helped them with their Google Grants. They had hired a professional to run it, and they weren't able to get past using a half of the grant, which was about $5,000 a month. And with my strategic help, they achieved the full $10,000. And then actually, at that time, there was a program called Google Grants Pro, which was $40,000 a month, and I was able to help them get up to that level. And they actually partnered with another organization, and we were able to get both of those nonprofits up to the Grant Pro level, where they were spending a total of $70,000 a month in free advertising. That program isn't available anymore, and the rules have changed, and that's why Peter and David are now on our team the experts on how to maximize these Google Grants. I just wanted to share that example of doing it with a real strategy, with really technical expertise, can get you from whatever level you're at now to a higher level or optimize a new grant. So I'll turn it over to Peter and David to do the presentation, and I'll just be here in the background. I'm actually logged into Sarah's account, so when I turn off my video, you'll see Sarah's face, and I'll be here in the background, maybe waiting to answer questions at the end. So take it away, guys. Thank you for putting this together.
Hello. How's it going, everyone? Can you hear me right now?
Yes.
All right, great. So I'm David Gwaltney. I am a online advertising and SEO specialist at JB Media, and I will also be joined by Peter Frisa, who is the senior online advertising specialist or manager. And I'll just kick it off. All right, so the often untapped power of the Google Ad Grant. All right, so what is the Google Grant? In essence, it is $10,000 in in-kind Google search advertising. And so that is per month. It doesn't roll over. And so that roughly equates to $120,000 in a year, which is great. And specifically, it's open to nonprofits. So you will need a 501(c) certification, but there are some restrictions on what nonprofits can get the grant. And those are hospitals, government entities, and universities. There's some gray areas in that, so I would recommend going to the Google website to find more on that. And we do have the link coming up here in a second. And you also must have a high quality site, and there are also some restrictions there, no e-commerce and that sort of thing. And we've also found that the more content you have, the better. That just enables you to fully utilize that $10,000. And there's the link, and I believe that this PowerPoint will be available at the end. All right, so with this $10,000 of monthly advertising budget, the benefits are increased traffic and awareness, which makes sense. You're getting clicks, and also people are seeing your branding in these ads if they're searching for things in your niche, in your area. Increased conversions, and conversions are a huge part of the grant in general. Conversions are required, and specifically more high quality conversions. So not things like time on page, but things like newsletter signups, form submissions, phone calls, donations, white paper downloads. And so with those, that really depends on what your needs are as an organization. And you can really tailor those. That might take some developer work, but once you get that going, that'll actually enable you to bid higher than what the Google Grants baseline is, which is $2 cost per click, or CPC. And then also this enables reporting. And as a matter of fact, you can do automated reporting. So you could actually, add your CEO to this list and automatically have them be emailed the results every month. All right, so how does it work? There are a few things to keep in mind. One is that these are only text-based, so these aren't graphic, or these won't show up on other websites. This is purely on Google search, and so no other like third-party searches, which Google can do in Google Ads, but not in Google Grant. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the Google search ads. They're now appearing a little bit more sneaky with the way they're showing ads with the tiny little AD next to them. But again, this is only Google search. And another thing to keep in mind is that you have to keep it in good working order. And there are some strict restrictions, and we'll talk a little bit about those. All right, so again, these are the requirements. You'll need 2 ad groups per campaign being the highest level, which then drills down to ad groups, which you'll need 2 of those. And within that ad group, you'll need 2 ads, at least. We usually recommend more. Keywords must be a quality score of 3 or higher, so you'll need to monitor the quality score pretty vigorously, because if they do go below 3, Google will pause your account. You can't have any single word or overly broad keywords. It's tempting, however, that's a pretty strict restriction on their part. And again, conversion tracking must be installed, and for that matter, even to get approved, you have to have conversion tracking installed. You have to have at least 2 site link extensions, and that's not too difficult to set up. And then one of the big kickers is a 5% click-through rate. And, average on Google Ads accounts is, industry standard is usually about 2%. So 5% is pretty high. So that really does require monitoring your account. And for that matter, many of our accounts that we've run usually actually run, for me, in around 10%. So these are actually really high quality accounts. And that's kind of what Google is wanting, is that this account be as high quality as possible, because they are giving you free traffic. And in this, sorry, these polls keep coming up. In this PowerPoint, there is the whole policy compliance guide. So there are a little bit more nuance to this, but in general, this is the larger view. All right, so in terms of structuring your campaigns, since I work in SEO, I know that there's certain keywords that are incredibly difficult to rank for. And with that, you can then take those keywords. For instance, let's say, I'm trying to use ziplining because that's on my mind right now. Let's say you run a ziplining company. It's a ziplining nonprofit. I'm not sure what that is, but let's say that exists. And there's no way you're going to rank for ziplining, number 1. It's an incredibly difficult keyword. So what you could do is take that keyword and use that in your Google Grant account, and then that will, in essence, put you to the top of the rankings. And then using your SEO will allow you to rank for some of the more niche keywords. And again, you do have the budget, because that baseline $2 CPC is pretty good. But then once you have the conversion strategy of maximize conversions, Google Grant allows you to go above $2 to, I would assume, infinite dollars. They're not going to do that, but I've seen CPCs of upwards of $20 on a Google Grant. So it does enable that. And then you definitely want to keep your keywords tied to their ad groups. And that's also going to play into your quality score, because a quality score is going to analyze the website, the landing page, as well as your ads and the targeted keywords. So the more that those can stay together, the higher the quality score. And further, you don't really want to repeat the same keyword in other ad groups, because in essence, you'll be competing against yourself. And then that just drives up your own CPC. All right, so with Google Ads in general, you're able to get highly focused. So Geo is important, and as a matter of fact, with the grant, you really cannot target places outside of where Google deems kind of your territory. So if you are regional, you're going to need to focus in on your region. You can target devices. So if you're finding more success with mobile, you can put more emphasis on mobile devices. And then there's also the responsive search ads, which are in essence just a long list of possibilities that Google has. So when a searcher comes, it'll basically stitch together all these types of ingredients that you've given them to create the best ad for the user. So negative keywords are incredibly important, especially when you're starting to look at your search terms of what people are actually searching. And if you're seeing that certain words that are not related to your business are triggering your ad, that's a good place then to add a negative keyword. And thus you're going to reduce the amount of irrelevant clicks, therefore having more money to advertise to the right people. And then the same thing, if you see search terms that people are searching, you could, there's kind of a trend there, you can build new ad groups and new ads around those, and that again will increase the quality score and lowering your CPC. And then again, with the bidding strategy, you can always use maximize clicks, but with the grant, again, if you use maximize conversions, that will remove the bid cap, and that will make you very competitive, especially in those very broad keywords. All right, and I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Peter.
And we actually have a quick question I was hoping you guys could answer really quick, which is how can a nonprofit see or measure their quality score to ensure that they're reaching a 3 or higher? I think, isn't that built into the system? Could you just answer that really quickly?
It is, yes. So when you're in your Google Ads account, there are multiple columns, for instance, CTR, CPC. You can always enable the quality score column. And then when you're in the keywords section of the accounts, you will see the quality score. And as long as the ads have shown, it's not gonna show a quality score if your ads have not shown. But once Google gets a sense of the quality of the keywords, it will then apply the keyword quality score.
Okay, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, thanks, David. Okay, so thank you so much, David. So on this screen right over here, we're gonna kind of recap some of the advanced strategies that David just outlined for us. So here now we're looking at radius targeting. So for those of you who may not be aware, this is one of the best ways to target your audiences. And as you'll notice here, there's a 27-mile radius and a 40-mile radius here on Silva and Murphy. And basically, I did this because instead of me going in and targeting every single county or city or zip code to make where I want to have these ads shown, I can just make a radius, and it's much quicker and more effective. And you'll also know this red section here in Tennessee, I've excluded the whole state here because I don't want my ads to show. So any place in red the ads will not show, and any place where the blue is the ads will show, and everything in between here will show as well. And that's a nice little targeting technique. Okay, so and then the way you do that, and this is very important, you go to your settings of your campaign, make sure you enter another location. Naturally, here's the Murphy and radius, targeting that we just saw earlier, and here's the excluded region. You click on your location options. Pay close attention here, because the default setting is always this selection right here, which they recommend. Just because they recommend it doesn't mean it's right. The reason why I would say 9 out of 10 times you're probably going to pick this, and I advise that you use this technique, is that means any person that is physically located inside those blue rings and those areas is going to be seeing the ad. If you have this recommended selection, picked, that means people who show interest, which means someone in Hawaii could start talking about tourism in North Carolina, or whatever it is your nonprofit offers, they will then be showing interest and could potentially be seeing your ads And those may not be qualified clicks because they're completely far or, from another country, another place that's not really useful to you. So it's really good to get in the habit of going through your settings, think of your targeting and using this setting here once you have your radiuses and your cities set up. Okay. Now we're going to talk about devices. So on the left here, I have my campaigns, and notice I've titled it mobile. So this is a mobile campaign, and we know that because when I click on my devices here, mobile is unaffected. However, in the red circle, -100 on computers and tablets, and I want it to be that low. I want only these mobile ads that I've created inside this campaign to serve only on mobile. And as we can see through the numbers so far, it's doing pretty well. We have a nice conversion rate, pretty low CPA, so I'm very happy with that. And this is, you got to start thinking about how to break out your campaigns, in ad groups in this manner. In this way, I have a mobile one. If you look right here, DDO HughesNet, this is the same campaign. The only difference is this one serves on computers and tablets and not mobile. So I think the opposite of that. Here's another example of using strategy to build out effective campaigns. Is that here's my major campaign here, and this time I did the same thing except it's at the ad group level. So here's my in-home mobile, and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to show you is that within just this ad group, I did the same thing where I'm only running this ad group on mobile, and these other ones I'll leave for desktop and tablet. And I've made specific mobile ads for this mobile ad group. And I recommend this strategy too when you need lead generating, you need phone calls, or talking to people on the phones of the utmost importance. To your business, you click your plus button here and you make a call ad that's for mobile only. So this means that anyone on a mobile phone will quickly and easily see your ad. They can just tap the phone number and it starts dialing. And this works great again for lead generation and things like that. Okay, so now we're looking at responsive search ads. This is one of the best innovations that Google Ads has made in a long time. I call these my secret weapon. I recommend you put one of these in every single ad group that you're running. And what it does is, if you pay attention to these headlines here, you get 15 different headlines. That's pretty awesome. And it's cut off here by the screen, but the descriptions, there's actually 4 body paragraphs that you get as well. And you get the option then to take your time, when you're writing ad copy. Sometimes in the old ads, you felt like you wanted to say more, but you couldn't say it. Well, now you can. I recommend using your keywords in all the headlines, and you can use many different, techniques, calls to actions, whatever message you want to put, you can put it here. You have all these options, and it uses AI and machine learning to custom select the best combination. So when the ad serves, it'll do what it can to give you the best, click, impression, and click-through rate. And generally, these have done very well in every single account that I've run. Now, pay attention here. They give you a score here. These little check marks increase as you do more to these ads. So try to fill out everything you can and get the best combinations. It might take you a couple turns, but it's worth it. And as you do that, this circle here fills up and you get an excellent. And excellent, I pretty much strive to get that on every single responsive search ad every time, and it's definitely paid off. Let's take a look at some results here. So what do all these have in common? Well, these are all responsive search ads. And I'm sorting it just by clicks here in this column, and we've noticed that, every single one of these ads is leading the way in this this Blue Ridge Heritage, Google Grant account. And we also notice the impressions are very high, excellent click-through rate, well above the 5, and then you'll even notice some double digits here. If you're above 10, that's considered outstanding. Okay, so definitely use your responsive search ads. You will notice a huge uptick in your conversions, clicks, and click-through rate. Okay, now remember David talked about bidding. So here we are looking at our bidding settings, and I believe as default it just probably selects it as a manual CPC, which could help you depending on what you're trying to do. But more often than not, you probably want to use your maximized conversions. You may want to run your campaigns on manual or maximized clicks for about 30 days, see how it does, and then ramp it up to maximized conversions. But when you go to your selections here, remember manual and maximized clicks, you're capped at $2 CPC, the same thing with target impression share. But these other ones, target CPA, target ROAS, or return on ad spend, or cost per acquisition, you're probably not going to use for a grant account. You could, but I don't think you would really use it. And then, but maximize conversions is really nice because, again, it gets rid of that cap, so that $2 CPC cap is removed. And if a keyword costs $10, well, guess what? You can bid for it and rank for it because you're using maximize conversions. So this is definitely a setting you should be aware of. Probably one using most of your campaigns. Okay, let's talk about some case studies now. I'm starting with, I think, one of the best case studies that we've had at JB Media with the group clients, and that is B-Lab. As you know, or maybe you're not aware, JB Media Group LLC is a certified B Corp. Here's their icon and symbol here for B-Lab. So when we first talked to them, they had a deactivated account. They didn't run this thing for years, so it goes into a deactivation status. And there's a lot of compliance rules we had to fix and that they needed us to fix for them. They had no conversion set up, and they had all the wrong campaigns. So we did a lot of work to getting this to where it needed to be. And they also had 4 different websites. That's 4 different domains, actually. And there's a specific way, if you have domains that are falling under the umbrella of the nonprofit, that you can actually get them approved for their grant account. And we were able to do that too. So we were very careful with the keyword research and primarily used the maximize conversion strategy. We delivered some really huge results. So let's take a look. So the total conversions during the tail end of 2018 and of 2019 was 1,408 total conversions. And for them, they were very much interested in newsletter signups, form submissions, impact assessments, and registration. So, and this goes across all the sites, of course. They're different to each one. But what I want you to focus on, so in 2018, just getting, doing all that heavy lifting and getting this account groomed, and ready to go, it took a while. We did okay in 2018, but in 2019, like, the numbers really soared. Like, as you know, form submissions we didn't get up and running in 2018, but did pretty well. Same with impact assessments and registrations. So to put that in those numbers into play here during this time period, that's 37,000 plus clicks, 212,000 plus impressions, 17.52% click-through rate. I said 10, above anything above 10 is like outrageous. This is super high, really, really good. And $1.93. So we're able to maintain a very low CPC despite using the maximized conversions across all their campaigns. That's under $2 is very cheap, very low for Google Ads, just so you know. So that was 477 newsletter signups, 161 form submissions, 285 impact assessments requested, 486 registrations. This case study very quickly will be available on the JD Media website. We're going to publish it really soon. Okay, so here's another one. I'm sure you're all familiar with the North Carolina Arboretum. So there's definitely a seasonality to this business. And they have many different events and attractions, but Winter Lights is the one they really want to, to hit a home run with. So they, they want to sell tickets for it. And so I started actually with maximized clicks, and basically that I found to work best actually for their grant. And we took it over in about, September 2019. So we ended up getting them during the time period, 98 total conversions and 78 Winter Lights tickets were sold. So what I'd like to illustrate here is this is the period where they were, running, and we took it about over here, and you just see you did so much work to this that I was able to really increase these clicks and conversions at a very all-time high. So as you get to December here, the conversions really shot up, and then they even had some in January. I believe Winter Lights goes to like January 10th or so, so that's why you're seeing some of those conversion ticket sales there. But yeah, maximize click worked really well just for me getting the most amount of traffic. Then because again, they weren't taking advantage of all the best keywords related to Christmas and December and during the Christmas time, and we were able to do that. Here's Carolina Public Press. So they're an independent news organization. They were covering the 2020 election. Again, this was a great time, kind of ties back to seasonality. This time, I was using maximize clicks for a little bit, but I was actually able to change the manual and do an even better job. The reason why is maximize clicks was giving me, like sometimes around close to a $2 CPC. And I was wondering, can I go even lower? And that's what manual does. I get ultimate control of that. And we had one day where the average CPC was 70 cents per click. And that was 473 clicks in one day. And driving traffic and awareness to the site is one of their primary goals. So let's look at the,
Hey,
yes.
Peter, I'm sorry. A few people are having trouble hearing you. Can you just speak up a little bit towards whatever mic you've got
Sure.
or your computer?
Sure.
Thanks.
So if you look at this graph, there's a bit of an inversion here. So our red line is average CPC and our blue line is our clicks. So as I started to change the CPC to a lower CPC, the red line goes down and the clicks go up, because it's kind of like when you have more budget, it lasts longer throughout the day. So here's that point for the 473 clicks at this point. Look how low that 70 cents CPC was. So that panned out very well for them, as you can see. And then as you see, as we get closer, the election was over, there, the traffic declines a little bit, which is to be expected, but overall the results are pretty good. So again, and we look here during this time period, this is what's enabled now. There are more campaigns running in. They had a total of 18,157 clicks. That's how many impressions they had, well above the 5%, 10.47% click-through rate, and we were only at $1.69 in the CPC, very low. So this did really well for them. That strategy worked very well. And let's talk about Capita. So it's a think tank, dedicated. Its mission is, dedicated to help children and families flourishing, and that means many things. It's about, everything from childcare to education, libraries, policy, politics. It's a lot of things that affect this general topic. And the CEO Joe, he writes a lot of blog or content pieces about these themes, and he also has his colleagues and friends that are writers and frequent contributors. So he wanted to use the Google grant to create ads that focuses on the blog or specific blog topics, to increase definitely traffic, newsletter signups, and donations. So we use the keyword planner to find the highest possible, impression-based keywords, and this is what we found. So if we look here at the campaign, you don't know, well, we took it over around this time. And then again, once we started working on it, we saw, our conversions and impressions here and clicks, really everything shoot up. If you look at this campaign right here, Blog Racism in History, originally this campaign was actually inside here. There's just a general blog, and each different blog I would make an ad for and tie specific keywords for. But there was an article written about, George Floyd, police brutality, and race relations. And during that time, it still is, it's doing really well. It was a very hot topic and a very controversial one that still gets a lot of traffic. So what I did was I actually took it out of here and isolated it into its own campaign. And the reason I did that is because it allows me then to find that flagship piece of content that many people are looking for. I used maximize conversions, and as you can see during this time, it's completely dominating. He's getting so many newsletter signups and conversions just from this one piece of content or this one campaign. It was doing so well, I had to do that because it was just dominating too much here. I took it out and I let it just kind of run free, if you will. And everything else so all the other blog topics I missed in here is a general page about the nonprofit, and that's a campaign dedicated to that. And then there's other more micro themes and specific themes that don't really fit into any of these other campaigns that he wanted me to use, and that's why they're there. But he's doing really well, and his investors are very happy, and we're able to consistently drive quality traffic, conversions, and results. So on that one, so far 6 donations. It's probably a little bit higher than that because we didn't get the donation tag running from day one, but he's definitely seeing 212 newsletter signups and 18,000 plus clicks. So again, part of the strategy why the newsletter signups is so important is that he uses it for a future advanced strategy where he's going to use his newsletter list to market to those individuals that, to get access to like premium content or paid content later on. So he's very happy with that. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. And we're sticking around for the Q&A. I can answer any questions. David or Justin and I will be more than happy to help. And sometimes these Google grants they're pretty involved and in-depth and advanced, and we're available for consulting and management. So please let's talk more about this. Thank you.
Great job, Peter. Wonderful presentation. And David as well.
Great. So do you guys want to hop in? I have the Q&A up and I can start feeding you the questions if you'd like.
Sounds good. I'll defer to these guys unless there's questions about like how we structure the service for organizations.
Okay, great. Well, the first question comes from Laura, and she was asking, her organization wants to target adult children of retired parents in Western North Carolina. Now, the retired parents can be in Western North Carolina, but the adult children could live anywhere in the country. And she was wondering, how would you potentially use that area that you showed where it says like show interest and you're choosing the audience? How would you kind of maybe suggest that they go after those folks?
I mean, I'll speak quickly because I think this question came up with Peter during his section, but I will say that just a preface that Google Ads doesn't have quite the targeting abilities as Facebook. I think it's basically because they're not really tied to, they are tied to a profile, but it isn't able to focus in as much as kind of what Facebook is able to do. Peter, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's okay. This one is in depth, but I'm more than happy to answer it. So remember, everything is keyword based that I've shown you. So if I was using that example as more of a strict targeting for being locked into physical region or location. So that's one way you can use it. If you want people to show interest in that, by all means, you can use the recommended setting, and from a keyword standpoint, it might help. Keep in mind, I didn't cover this. There is an audience and demographics selection tab on your campaigns, which means you can go deeper and you might be able to find those specific audience that's identifying more personality types or lifestyle interest, affinity on audiences, et cetera, that might be appropriate. But with all of these things said, you'll have to test them to see if they work. That's what great marketing is. It's coming up with hypotheses and testing them and seeing what works over time. So I can't give a definitive answer until you really test those situations out in different campaigns.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think creative targeting is one of my strength areas, and if I understand the question correctly, which I'm not sure that I do, I would think you would target people demographically in the right age range. So adult children would mean people between 25 and 45 because their parents are likely retirement age. And then you target them based on what they're searching for. And if you're looking for people who are looking for retirement, their parents retiring to Asheville, then they would be looking for keywords related to retiring in Asheville. So if you target younger people who are looking for retirement content around Western North Carolina or wherever you're located, that's going to be a fairly small audience. Like they might not get very many clicks, but that would be the way to target them, like demographically, and then what they're looking for. The hardest part would be if they weren't actually looking for it, because that's the only way the Google search keywords work is when they actually type something in. So you have to target based on you have to have content relevant to what they're looking for. And the more closely you can align those things, the higher scores you get, like Peter was showing, and David was showing earlier in the presentation, that gets those lower cost per click, so the better quality traffic.
Great. Yeah. And Laura was just saying that was super helpful because, again, I think Google Ads has lots of different things that come together to define the audience there. So thank you. The next question we have is, could one of you or all of you just share a little bit more about what does maximize clicks in the bid strategy? What does that actually mean? Or like when you say maximize conversions even, can you just explain what that means to people who aren't really familiar?
Sure. It means pretty much exactly that. Google has a setting where that when you select maximize clicks, it's going to do its best job to get the most amount of clicks during the day as you have that strategy selected. So sometimes, you have the $2 CPC, so those conditions are set. It'll get as many clicks as it can based on not going over $2 a click. Maximize conversions does exactly that. It will focus on getting the max amount of conversions you have for whatever you dial in for your daily budget. So if you sort of maybe $300 a day daily budget, it will try to get as many conversions as it can on that campaign during the day, irrespective of price. So it doesn't matter. You could spend $300 in the day and only get one conversion. And if that's all it can do, then that's all it does. So it just puts a focus. You have to think of what you're focused. Do you want to get mostly conversions? Are you more interested in clicks? Are you most interested in CPCs? That'll help you identify what you should use as your bidding strategy as you run your campaigns.
I can break that down one level further. To maximize the number of clicks, you got to drive down the cost per click, and you got to go as broad as possible with your content, your keywords, within relevance. So that doesn't necessarily drive the highest quality traffic. Focusing on traffic, maximizing that's a way to maximize the traffic, but not necessarily the quality of it. But the difference between maximizing clicks and maximizing conversions is whether or not you're going to be in that first position, because sometimes the person who's really ready to make a decision, they're going to click on the first thing and they're going to fill out a form and they're going to be done. It costs way more to be in that first position. If you're maximizing your clicks, you might be in the third, fourth, or fifth position, which means someone's already clicked on the ads above you. Now they're doing their research and they're down to you. They may end up choosing something that they clicked on before after the decision process and not convert. So Google knows that. They know that way better than any human can because of their machine learning. So they know exactly what position gets the most conversions because they track through to the conversion. So they know where to put you to get the most conversions. And that usually means spending more per click because you have to be closer to the top.
All right, great. And the next question from Jenny is, did the budgets that you showed in the case studies, are those budgets just money from the Google grant, or are those somehow typical amounts spent by nonprofit? They just wanted clarity on that money, the budgets that you have. I'm assuming that's all part of the grant itself, right?
Yes. Keep in mind that this is not real money. It's just banked in this account, and you have access to $330 spent per day. So whatever you set your budget for is what you set it to. And if you spend the full amount per day, that's great. If not, as David said earlier, you can't bank it. It's not like, oh, I only spent $100 today, so I get another, figure that all rolls over to the next day. It doesn't work like that. So that's what Google's issuing you as your budget to use, and you can set it to whatever you like per campaign per day.
And just to clarify, are all Google grants $10,000 a month? Is that true?
Yes, that is true. There are certain times of the year, I believe, the season of giving, November, December, they do offer certain accounts to go up to, I believe, $20,000 a month, but you have to get through some hoops basically, and they'll email you about that kind of leading up to that period of time. But normally it's $10,000 a month.
Yeah, unless
Great.
you're fortunately grandfathered into the Grant Pro program, which I don't think they've opened that up for the last 5 or 6 years, but there are organizations that still are in it. I don't think they kicked them out.
Awesome. So the last question we have submitted is, do you think nonprofits can anticipate driving donations through a Google grant? Is that something you see typically, or is driving donations harder than, let's say, accomplishing other things like newsletter signups or things like that?
I would say that driving donations is one of the most difficult things to do because simply all of us have tried this many times. If you use keywords like, let's look at it like this. If you use keywords like donate to a nonprofit, or I'd like to donate to a nonprofit, or something as your keywords and have campaigns based on that and have ad copy that resembles that, it doesn't really work well at all. What's more important is that you have quality traffic going to your site. And for example, if you have a really well-written page, maybe particularly one with a very compelling and heartfelt video that it explains why and shows why, you're a very noble, nonprofit and worthy of donations and what the donations are going to be used for, that's going to be more effective for increasing donations than just saying like, hey, donate to me, or using donate-based keywords, or, it's definitely one of the harder things to do, but the ones that pull it off, like Joe is pulling it off because he's very serious and heartfelt with his mission, and people think, that his cause is doing a really good job. He's able to exemplify that on his site. So it has more to do, I think, with those qualitative and heartfelt aspects to really elicit someone to donate and have that kind of reaction. That's
Peter, I'll also add that I've been on boards of 4 or 5 nonprofits, and typically, other than like event-based fundraising and one-to-one based fundraising, email marketing to raise funds is the most common strategy. So if you can get people on your email list because they're opting in to receive something from you, whether that's a free online class or a downloadable piece of content that goes deep into what you do or the outcomes of your work, then they're bought in, more bought in than they would have been before, especially if they're finding you for the first time when they click on the search ad. Now they're on your list, and then when you do your appeal or you run some sort of revenue generating activity like tickets to an event or anything like that, anything programmatic that generates revenues, you have them on your list and they're more aware of you and what you do from that, whatever previous experience they had. So I usually think that email acquisition, unless you're selling something directly, I mean, some nonprofits do sell memberships, or you apply, the product is to apply to become a member or something like that. That's obviously maybe more important than the email list, but in a lot of cases, the email list is the first step. And then later on, they'll donate once and the email, because it gives you a chance to continue to communicate all the great things you're doing for them 2/3 or 3/4 of the year, and then ask for money, seasonally or whenever it makes sense for your organization.
Great. And so I just want to remind everybody, if there's any other questions, feel free to pop them into the chat right now as we wrap up. But I had one question I wanted to throw out to you all, because after working with so many nonprofits, I'd love to hear your sort of expert feedback on this. But I think whenever people are going to utilize their Google Grants or even run any ad campaign, it's really key that their website be really great. So I'm just curious, do you have any nonprofit tips for people if they're working on their website to make it stronger? Are there things that you could tell them really matter when it comes to succeeding with their Google Grant?
I can throw some tips in. I kind of went over this a little bit earlier on. The more content, the better. Now, that doesn't mean, just making as much as possible low quality content, but you definitely want high quality. Things to consider are keywords. So doing some kind of keyword research. Actually, with the grant, you'll have access to the Google Keyword Planner, so you could use that, because you do want your landing pages to correlate with the keywords that you're bidding on. So that is incredibly helpful. And again, just the amount of content, because if you only have, let's say, 3 landing pages, it's going to be incredibly difficult to utilize the full 10,000. You're not guaranteed to use that 10,000. So the more content and the more high quality content, the better.
I'll add that the user experience on the page is critical. We're launching a Google Grant for a global social impact investing nonprofit this month or next month. I think it's being, David's getting into the program. They have been like B-Lab. They had been suspended years ago. But in their case, we also did a design audit, and the design audit indicated we're doing campaigns around search terms that institutional impact investors might be looking for. They might not be aware that this organization has a membership program, which offers basically shared knowledge and information about the industry. And it's a fairly expensive membership program. It costs between $2,000 and $10,000 a year to be a member. So they need to really clearly communicate on all those landing pages that they have a membership program and link over to the membership landing page. Because I don't think people are looking for the membership. They're looking for knowledge, and that's what the organization is. That's their product, is that knowledge that they gather from their members and share out. It's almost like a think tank hybrid with a just educational organization. So they want to attract people looking for advanced solutions in their sector, and then they want to drive them into the membership funnel, which is basically to apply to become a member, set up a call to learn about membership, things like that. So that only happens if the page is designed in such a way that their experience is gracefully intercepted what they're looking for and clearly communicated, you might be a good fit as a member because XYZ. And to answer Jeff's questions, yes, you can set everything up and let it run for a while. There are, David and Peter could speak to it, but there are requirements of logging in a certain number of times and making changes every month or every quarter, or your account will be suspended. And also there's warnings that go off when your keywords fall below certain levels, and that can cause your campaign to be paused. And if you don't take action on those fast enough, you'll get suspended. But it is, if you have a campaign that's really optimized and you're not seasonal, I think it's possible to get it down to about maybe as low as an hour a week of work. Would that be accurate, David and Peter? Like 1 hour once a week to check on it for a very well stabilized campaign.
Yeah, I would say that is possible. And I also want to emphasize that I don't, I probably shouldn't be saying this. I don't think it's necessary to have someone manage it for you. I think you could have someone internally do it, but I do think you'll get the best results by hiring someone out that is specialized in this.
Well, if they are in-house, they would need to learn how to be an expert at it. It needs to be a practice. And these gentlemen who work with us, they've been doing it actively on multiple accounts at the same time for years. And you figure out certain things that work in one account and you apply it to other accounts. It's kind of that shared learning across. And then collectively, internally, I throw ideas. I say, why don't you try this? Or let's try this. And that may or may not work. But over time, we've collected a series of things that work for different types of nonprofits. But we also do a lot of situations where we get it really dialed in 3 or 4 months. And then we train someone at the nonprofit to do it themselves. That is, we're just as happy to do that as to run it long term. We do have about 10 or 12, maybe 15 clients that we manage kind of in perpetuity. But we also usually 2 to 3 times a year, we'll do a 4 to 6 month project and then train an organization's internal team member, especially if there's someone or multiple team members who want to learn it or feel excited about it. It's kind of like day trading in some degree, like you're just making lots of little minor adjustments if you want to get it maximized. And it can be, I think it's actually kind of fun especially if you're I'm sure Peter had enjoyed that Carolina Public Press opportunity because it's really, it allows a lot of creativity when things are going well, like when there's a big opportunity you can capitalize on. I've done that before in a few cases in paid Google Ads campaigns where a big media story hit and I was the first one to get an ad up and all of a sudden I was getting massive clicks for a really low budget. And that's what happened around the campaign and the election with Carolina Public Press, as well as the Winter Lights with Arboretum.
Great. So I know we're coming to the top of the hour. I just want to really quickly thank Peter and David and Justin for offering so much great expertise. Our final question came from Judy, which was basically that all this information seems pretty intimidating. I think all 4 of us know Google grants can often be intimidating, especially when you're first starting out. So can you guys really quickly in just the last couple minutes share, what kind of budget should a nonprofit have if they want to hire a team to do this? Since that's really, I think, what you guys focus on, right, is helping nonprofits. What gets a nonprofit to the point where they can bring somebody on to take this over?
Well, for the first 3 to 4 months, we range from between $1,000 and $2,000 a month to get it set up and optimized. And then after that, it can fall anywhere down between $500 and $1,500 a month to keep it going long term. And in some cases, we just do that once a quarter, like 1 month out of each quarter, we'll jump back in, check it out, make it better if the team has been trained. So it's like 2 phases. There's actually there's a strategy and research and setup. Then there's the optimization, which is each of those phases is 2 to 3 months. And then there's the ongoing management. And so the ongoing management is much less. The average is about $1,000 a month. If the organization is larger, more complicated, has multiple domains or multiple regions, it can be more. It can even be more than $1,500. But that's $1,500 is really about the most we charge anyone now per month.
Great. So again, I know we're right at 1 o'clock and everybody has to get back to work. Thank you all so much for joining us. As usual, for our monthly digital drop-in, we hope that we'll see you the first Wednesday in March for our next digital drop-in, which will basically be an awesome behind-the-scenes look at marketing professionals and getting top tips from experts. But thank you all so much again for attending. And again, Peter, David, Justin, we really appreciate your expertise today. Thanks so much for your time and have a great rest of your week.
Thank you both. Great presentation today.
Thank you.